The axiom arc was a monument to optimism, or perhaps statistical necessity. It hung in the high orbit of Valorum, a pearl of engineered light against the deep, violet smear of the nebula. Below, the planet itself, a bustling port world, was perpetually haloed by the twin suns, one a pale gold, the other a sharp amethyst. Their combined light never truly set. It just shifted in intensity, painting the station's corridors in hues of lavender and rust. This was the University Station, the grand academic experiment of the Alliance, housing students from 312 distinct species. Its atmosphere was stratified by design. The central commons smelled of recycled air and 16 varieties of fried dough. The upper levels, where the Vel academics resided, carried a scent of dry dust and ancient paper. The student dormitories, massive multi-biosphere rings, were a chaotic blend. Aidan Cole's section smelled of ammonia-laced ferns for his Xylos neighbors, the sharp tang of Nira's Solari spice collection, and the lingering odor of Jax's cold, soldering flux. Aidan Cole, first year, double major in space mechanics and interplanetary ethics, walked the transit corridor. He was quiet, not by choice, but by observation. He had been quiet on Earth, and he was quiet here. His file at admissions was aggressively average, the kind of application that gets approved to fill a quota. The quota for Earth, the Class 12- Deathworld that had stumbled into the Alliance only 8 years prior, was small. He felt the hum of the station's primary force field through the soles of his boots. It was a low, resonant vibration that most inhabitants filtered out. Aidan did not. He listened to it. He felt for the microstutters that meant a docking clamp was engaging 5 kilometers away, or the shift in frequency as the life support system compensated for a new atmospheric mix in the adaptive classrooms. Around his neck, beneath the standard gray tunic, rested a piece of scratched titanium. It was old, pre-Alliance tech, a simple disc on a worn chain. It was his mother's. His fingers often found their way to it, tracing the gouge near its edge, a habit that his roommates had learned to ignore. His threat perception was not listed on any academic file. It was a reflex, born from a childhood spent on a planet that actively tried to kill its inhabitants. Earth was not a garden. It was a high-gravity crucible of tectonic rage, extreme weather, and apex predators. Aidan had survived Superstorm K2, a weather event that had rewritten coastlines, by listening to the pressure changes in the air and hiding for 6 days in a utility conduit. That survival had left him with what the Alliance medical bots called a gravity-adaptive cardiovascular anomaly. His heart was simply stronger. It was an unofficial, unlisted, and entirely hidden potential. He entered their shared living pod. It was small, functional, and loud. "Aidan, you absolutely must try this," Nirathal said. She was perched on the cooling unit, her long, elegant Solari limbs folded. Her species were empaths, gauging the emotional resonance of the universe, and she, apparently, gauged it best through her spice tolerance. She held out a bulbous, purple fruit dripping with red powder. "It is only a 4 on the Collis scale. It just burns the first layer of taste buds off, not the second." "I will pass. Nira." "Again," Aidan said, his voice a low monotone. He sat at his own terminal. "I need my taste buds for, tasting." "You humans are so limited," she sighed, her disappointment a palpable wave of blue light feeling in the room. She bit into the fruit with a sharp crack, and her eyes widened in pure ecstasy. "Oh, that is the good stuff." "Hey, Cole!" Jax Rourke shouted from his alcove, not looking up. His face was illuminated by the flickering light of a diagnostic tool. He was a part-time engineer, a full-time human, and his mouth operated at a speed that often left ethics in a distant second place. Did you recalibrate the simulation parameters for Ventor's class? That man's models are sloppy. His friction coefficients for the Serret gate are based on peacetime energy signatures, not active transit. It is all wrong. I did, Jax, Aiden said, already keying in the adjustments. I factored in the gravimetric shear from a collapsing warp bubble. Good. Because if I have to listen to him lecture about theoreticals one more time, I am going to route the mess hall's waste pipe into his tenure review. Jax tossed a smoking capacitor over his shoulder. Oops, my bad. Aiden just shook his head and headed for the door. Class, see you both later. Do not let Kalith get under your skin, Nira called after him, her voice suddenly serious. Her empathic nature meant she felt the friction in the hallways long before he did. He is broadcasting arrogance today, and hunger. Aiden did not reply. He just raised a hand in acknowledgement and stepped into the transit lift. The classroom was one of the adaptive ones. As students from different biologies filed in, the air pressure subtly adjusted. The humidity rose to accommodate the amphibious crane, while localized temperature fields cooled for the fur-bearing Orions. The scent of ionized air from the scrubbers fought a losing battle against the damp earth smell of the crane and the sharp, metallic tang of the Noctari. Professor Halix Ventor, a Vel, began his lecture. The Vel were a silicon-based species, and Ventor resembled a 7-foot-tall shard of articulated obsidian. His voice was the sound of grinding stones. Yet, it commanded attention. The Serret hyperspace gate, Ventor grated, the translation software smoothing his words into sterile Alliance standard. It is not a door, as the human media insists on calling it. It is a controlled wound in spacetime, a folding of reality that requires more energy in 1 second than your homeworld's suns will output in 1,000 years. Aiden listened, his focus absolute. This was mechanics. This was math. This was the sanity of numbers and physics. He found comfort in the predictable stress load of a theoretical construct. In the tiered seating to his left sat the Noctari delegation. They were new to the Alliance. Their entry fast-tracked for political reasons Aiden did not care about. What he did know was that they were tall, unnervingly pale, and carried themselves with an aura of predatory grace. They were, according to the whispers in the data net, energy vampires. They did not drink blood. They imbibed, as their official literature put it, the plasma energy of other living beings. They were also, and this was the crucial part, nobles. Lord Kalith Dre was the epitome of that nobility. He sat, not reclined, in his adaptive chair, his uniform a stark black against his marble white skin. He was not listening to the lecture. He was watching the other students with a bored, proprietary gaze, as if scanning a menu. The ethical implications, Professor Ventor continued, are as significant as the mechanical ones. The gate's stability is dependent on the energy source. Early models, as you know, were catastrophic. The tragedy of the Eridani fleet. Aiden's hand froze over his terminal. A refugee flotilla misjumped due to an unstable resonance, Venner said, unaware of the shift in the room. The resulting energy cascade vaporized all 12 ships. It was this event that led to the prohibition on. Kalith Dre turned his head. His eyes, the color of a void, locked onto Aiden Cole. It was not a glance. It was an acquisition. Aiden knew that gaze. He had seen it in the eyes of starving K2 scavengers. He had seen it in the data files of his mother's last transmission. The Eridani fleet was not just a historical footnote. It was the convoy his mother, Dr. Sable Cole, had been on. The unstable resonance had an official name, the Noctari, a low-frequency signal, almost too quiet to hear, hummed through the classroom. It was not part of the adaptive environment. It was a jamming signal. Simultaneously, The air pressure spiked, and the localized violence suppression field, the technology that was supposed to keep 312 species from murdering each other between classes, flickered and died. The status light on Aiden's desk went from green to gray. Caleth Dre smiled. It was a slow, terrible unfolding of his features. With a motion so fast it blurred, he reached inside his tunic. He did not pull a standard energy weapon. He produced a knife. It looked like it was carved from the bone of some great animal, a milky, iridescent white. As it hit the classroom's mixed light, the edges lit up with a contained optical field, shimmering with deadly potential. The room fell into absolute silence. The grinding of Ventor's voice stopped. The soft breathing of the crane ceased. Caleth stood up. He did not rush. He walked down the tiers, the bone optic knife held loosely at his side. He stopped directly in front of Aiden's desk. He was a full foot taller than the human, a shadow blotting out the holographic schematics on the wall. He raised the knife, its glowing edge humming, and pointed it directly at Aiden's throat. My family lost honor in the Eridani campaign. Caleth's voice was a cultured baritone, smooth and cold. We were accused, by your pathetic, soft species, of mismanaging the evacuation. Aiden did not move. He did not lean back. He did not flinch. Inside his chest, his anomalous heart gave a single, powerful thud. The world did not slow down. That was a myth. Instead, data flooded in. The distance to Caleth, 1.2 meters. The knife length, 20 centimeters. The probable grip reverse, for a slashing upward strike. The jamming signal, still active, meaning the suppression field was down for at least 10 more seconds. The exit blocked by 2 panicking Orions. The professor frozen. He felt the adrenaline, the familiar cold fire of the Deathworlder reflex. It was not panic. It was clarity. His body cataloged the minor ache in his left knee and the stiffness in his neck, and then it filed them away under irrelevant. Pain was just data. He met Caleth's gaze, and Aiden Cole smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was not a grimace of fear. It was the smile of a mechanic who has just identified the single, critical point of failure in a complex machine. It was a smile that said, I see you. I understand you. And you have made a calculation error. Caleth's own smile faltered. His eyes narrowed. This was not the reaction he expected. He had expected terror, begging, or a futile, clumsy defense. He had not expected assessment. The human was not looking at him like prey. The human was looking at him like a problem to be solved. Aiden's posture shifted. A minute. Almost imperceptible change. He did not stand. He simply centered his weight, his hands remaining visible on his terminal, palms up, relaxed. It was not a fighting stance. It was the opposite. It was a stance of such profound, economical stillness that it radiated danger. It was the stillness of the storm's eye, the calm that precedes the kinetic violence of a planet's wrath. Caleth hesitated. The glowing edge of the knife wavered for a fraction of a second. In that moment of absolute tension, the entire lecture hall holding its collective breath, Aiden Cole spoke. His voice was not loud. It was perfectly level, dry, and carried easily in the sudden quiet. He did not address the Noctari noble who was threatening to kill him. He addressed his professor. Professor Ventor, Aiden said, his eyes still locked on Caleth. You were teaching us today about the principles of friction, and it is clear to me that his knife is losing its argument with reality. The sheer, absurd audacity of the statement shattered the tension. It was so logical, so procedural, so utterly human, that it short-circuited the entire confrontation. Caleth's aristocratic features contorted in confusion, then rage. This was an insult deeper than a challenge. He was being dismissed. He lunged. The lunge never completed. The jamming signal cut out as abruptly as it had begun. The suppression field snapped back online with the sound of a giant tuning fork. Aiden felt it as a wave of heavy inertia. Caleth felt it as an invisible wall. The field did not stop him. It simply multiplied the resistance of the air around him. His lunge, meant to be lightning fast, became a slow-motion tableau of frustrated intent. The bone optic knife, straining against a force it could not cut, stopped a centimeter from Aiden's tunic. Caleth roared, fighting against the sudden, oppressive weight of the very air, his muscles straining. Aiden just watched him, his smile gone, replaced by a look of profound disappointment. He leaned back in his chair, breaking eye contact, and returned his attention to his terminal. He was done. In the back row, hidden by the shadow of a bulkhead, a female Noctari watched the entire exchange. She was dressed in the simple gray of an exchange student, her features carefully muted. But as the suppression field reactivated, she let out a breath she did not realize she was holding. Her hands were clenched so tightly, her fingernails had drawn blood from her palms. She was not watching Caleth. She was watching the human. Her name was Seraphine Dre, a disguised princess of the Noctari Empire, and her eyes held a mixture of absolute terror and a sudden, sharp, and entirely dangerous curiosity. 2 heartbeats later, the classroom doors burst open, and 3 heavily armored Axiom Arc security officers piled in, their pulse rifles leveled. "Nobody move," one shouted, the order rendered redundant by the suppression field, still holding Caleth in his awkward, frozen lunge. The standoff was over. The lesson had been concluded. Caleth was flushed from the room by security, his diplomatic immunity already being screamed by a functionary on a datapad. But he was still taken. Professor Ventor, looking like a shattered piece of granite, formally dismissed the class. Students scrambled to leave, a wave of multi-species chatter and nervous energy. Aiden Cole just gathered his things. "That," Jax Rourke said, appearing at his elbow, his face pale but his eyes bright, "was suboptimal. Also, losing its argument with reality. Who even says that?" "He was applying a force to an object that was not yielding," Aiden said, packing his datapad. "It is a failed proposition." "Aiden," Nira's voice was shaky. She grabbed his arm, her empathic senses clearly overloaded. Your emotional color. It just went cold. Like deep space cold. Are you all right?" "I am fine, Nira." He gently removed her hand. "It was just physics." He left them behind and walked back to his dorm pod alone. He needed the quiet. He needed to feel the hum of the station and let his heart slow down from crisis to normal. He sat on his bunk, the bulkhead cool against his back. He pulled the titanium disc from under his shirt. The gouge was old, but he remembered the day it happened, the day the news from Eridani arrived, the day his 9-year-old self had punched a steel bulkhead in rage, and the metal shard that flew off had scarred the memento his mother had left him. His terminal chimed, a private message, routed through 3 separate anonymous proxies, bypassing the Academy's security. It was text only, 25 words. They wanted you to break. They wanted the Deathworlder to show his teeth. The knife was a test. Do not get involved. This is much deeper than you think. Aiden stared at the message. The long-term conflict had just been ignited. His quiet, academic life was over. He closed his eyes, the image of the bone optic knife hanging in the air. He had passed their test by refusing to take it, but he knew, with the cold certainty of a Deathworld survivor, that another one was coming. The incident did not have a name for the first 12 hours. On the Infonet, it was simply the event in Lecture Hall 4C. Then, the narratives began to congeal. By the 24-hour mark, it was the Noctari human aggression incident. By 36 hours, the narrative had been weaponized. The interstellar nets, particularly those catering to the more cautious species, had settled on a name, the Deathworld or Provocation. Aidan Cole watched the official Axiom Arc broadcast in their pod. The administrator, a ponderous, multi-tongued being encased in a translation fluid tank, issued a statement of profound regret. It spoke of shared responsibility and the unique pressures on students from disparate backgrounds. The subtext, however, was as clear as the amethyst light of the secondary sun. The Noctari noble had acted rashly, yes, but the humans' unconventional response had escalated a tense cultural misunderstanding. Escalated, Jax Rourke threw a memory chip at the screen. It bounced off with a harmless tink. He escalated. The other guy pulled a 5,000 credit bone optic shiv. You sat there and quoted the physics manual at him. If anything, you de-escalated too much. It was boringly competent. They are protecting their diplomatic ties with the Noctari, Aidan said, his voice flat. He was running a diagnostic loop on his own terminal, his back to the news report. It is a political calculation. It is easier to blame the new variable. That is us. Nira Thal was huddled in a thermal blanket, despite the pod's perfectly regulated 22 degrees Celsius temperature. The emotional backlash from the incident had left her perceptibly drained. "It is more than that," she whispered, her voice thin. "The statement itself, it feels wrong. It is layered with a kind of smug satisfaction. It is not just neutral. It is pleased." "Pleased," Jax scoffed, retrieving his chip. "Who is pleased Calith got hauled off by his own embassy? He is probably being grounded for a century." "He was recalled for consultation," Aidan corrected, not looking up. The public report had been released an hour ago. Lord Calith Dre has been granted full diplomatic transit and is no longer on station. No charges filed. No academic misconduct report. He is gone. "See?" Jax threw his hands up. "The rich aristocrats get away with it. Story as old as time, just with pointier ears and a taste for plasma." "That is the problem," Aidan said, finally turning. His screen showed a complex schematic of the Axiom Arc's internal security grid. "It is too neat. It was not a random assault. It was a performance." "What do you mean, a performance?" Nira asked, pulling the blanket tighter. "The jamming signal, the suppression field failure, the knife, the monologue." "It was all for an audience," Aidan said. He pointed to a line of code on his screen. "And this is the stage machinery. Professor Ventor's classroom is in strategic mechanics, Sector C. It is one of the highest security learning zones on the station. The suppression field in that room is not a standard model. It is a quad-redundant military-grade system. It does not fail." "Not like that." Jax leaned in, his eyes scanning the code. "So, what a hack?" "Not just a hack. A physical override. I have been running simulations based on the system logs I pulled during the incident. The failure was not a system-wide crash. It was a localized, hardwired bypass. Someone, probably weeks ago, installed a dedicated piece of hardware to interrupt that specific field, in that specific room." Jax's expression shifted from annoyed to intrigued. "A physical plant that is old school and bold. That requires maintenance-level access." He grinned, a sudden, wolfish expression. "I have maintenance-level access." "I know," Aidan said. "And I have the signal trace from the jamming device. It was low frequency, designed to mimic a common drive core fluctuation, but its resonance was off by 0.003%. It was sloppy. I need you to get me into the grid conduit 34 Delta." "Oh, no, no, no," Jax said, backing away. "That conduit runs past the consular section. It is high traffic, high surveillance. You are not a mechanics student right now." "Aidan." You are Exhibit A in the Deathworld Threat Index, which, by the way, has spiked by 1,200% on the public forums. Which is exactly why I need to go, Aiden said. They are building a case to restrict human access. This ritual humiliation was the first step. They needed a human to react, to be the animal they keep saying we are. When I did not, they just changed the narrative. Now, I am the cold, calculating predator who unnerved a noble into a mistake. Either way, they win. Unless we find the hardware, Jax finished, a slow smile spreading. Unless we find the proof that it was a setup, he sighed, grabbing his toolkit. This is going to violate at least 6 different academic bylaws. We are just checking for resonance fatigue, Aiden said. Resonance fatigue, right. Jax slung the kit over his shoulder. Nira, if we get caught, tell them we were looking for the bathroom. This is a terrible idea, boys, Nira said, but her voice was stronger. The thrill of subversive investigation was a bright, clean spike of yellow-gold excitement in the emotional spectrum, a welcome change from the muddy gray fear of the past day. Be careful, and do not touch anything that glows, or pulses, or looks expensive. The maintenance conduit 34 Delta was not designed for human comfort. It was a meter-wide tube, thick with insulated cabling and humming power relays. The air smelled of hot metal and conductive dust. Aiden moved through it with a practiced, noise-free economy, his Deathworlder's sense of balance making the narrow footing trivial. Jax was less graceful, his muttered curses a constant, low-amplitude accompaniment. There, Aiden whispered, pointing. He did not need a flashlight. His eyes had long since adjusted to the dim utility lighting. Tucked behind a primary power junction, almost invisible against the tangle of wires, was a device. It was sleek, black, and non-standard. It was not Axiom Arc hardware. Well, hello, beautiful, Jax breathed, running his diagnostic tool over it. That is consortium tech. High grade. Look at the serial number. That is military. This thing is a signal intervention circuit. It is designed to... Oh, that is clever. It does not just jam the suppression field. It fools it. It tells the system that the field is active, while simultaneously creating a dead zone the size of a classroom. The system logs read green the entire time. Who supplied it? Aiden asked, his voice tight. Nobody supplied this, Cole, Jax said, his own voice losing its humor. This was installed. This is an intelligence-grade piece of equipment, the Consortium of Commerce. What are they doing, rigging a university lecture hall? Creating a pretext, Aiden said. He looked at the device, a cold understanding settling in his stomach. The anonymous message had been right. This is much deeper than you think. Leave it, but document everything. Get me a full scan. I do not want them to know we found it. I want to know who comes back to retrieve it. Copying now, Jax said. This is so far above our pay grade. We are first-year students. We should be worrying about passing ethics, not interstellar conspiracies. Maybe this is the ethics final, Aiden said. He did not get back to his pod until the 3rd sleep cycle. Nira was asleep, her breathing a soft, rhythmic puff in the quiet. Jax was already comatose in his bunk. Aiden sat at his terminal, reviewing the scans Jax had pulled. A consortium circuit. The consortium was the Alliance's economic engine, the massive corporate entity that financed, well, everything, including the Axiom Arc, including the Human Integration Program. His terminal chimed. It was not a message. It was a proximity alert. A student was standing outside his pod door. He checked the time. 0430. He activated the door sensor. It was Seraphine Dre. She was alone. The disguised Nocteri princess. The exchange student. The girl from the back of the classroom. She was not in her simple student grays. She was wearing a high-collared formal tunic, her hair bound in an intricate silver clasp. She looked, in a word, noble. Aiden hesitated. He thought of the knife. He thought of the message. Do not get involved. He opened the door. She did not flinch, but her posture stiffened as she saw him. He was just a human, but he was the human who had faced down her cousin and had not even blinked. "Aiden Cole," she said. Her voice was a low, melodic contralto. It was nothing like Calith's commanding baritone. It was precise. "You are Seraphine Dre," he replied. He did not invite her in. He stood in the doorway, a quiet, immovable obstacle. "I am," she said. She seemed to struggle for a moment, as if her script had been discarded. I came to express my apologies for the conduct of my cousin." "He was recalled for consultation," Aiden said, quoting the report. "He was," she agreed, her pale face unreadable. "It is a difficult time for my family." "I am sure," Aiden said. An awkward silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant hum of the station. She was studying him, her void dark eyes cataloging his plain tunic, the tension in his shoulders, the scarred titanium chain just visible at his collar. "You have been restricted," she said finally, abruptly. "What?" "Your academic access, your human cohort, your access to the Strategic Mechanics Archive and the Nocteri Cultural Library has been suspended. Pending review." Aiden felt a cold knot tighten in his gut. The library, his mother's case, the Eridani fleet. All the official reports were sealed. But the Noctari Library held the unredacted ship manifests, the cultural accounts, the truth. And he had just lost his key. "I see," he said, his voice remaining perfectly level. "I may be able to assist," Seraphine said. She looked down, a very unnoble gesture of submission. "My student credentials are different. I can authorize a guest pass, a temporary extension, if you like." Aiden looked at her, really looked at her. She was a Noctari. She was Calith's family. This was either a trap or something else. "Why would you do that?" he asked. She looked up, her gaze meeting his. "Because I am also a student, and I find the concept of restricting access to a library distasteful." She paused, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. "Besides, I am curious. What does a Deathworlder, a mechanic, want with our ancient poetry?" "I am researching unstable resonance," Aiden said. Her smile vanished. "Ah, Eridani." She was silent for a long, long time. "The official reports are quite clear." "The official reports are garbage," Aiden said, the first spark of heat entering his voice. She did not recoil. Instead, she tilted her head, as if listening to a new frequency. "You are not like other humans. They are loud, emotionally. You are contained. It is very unusual." "We are an adaptive species," Aiden said. "Yes, Calith learned that," she said softly. "The library. I can get you access, but you must meet me there. Tomorrow. Second cycle. And you must not tell anyone. My guest pass is not entirely official." "Why are you helping me?" Aiden asked again. Seraphine took a step closer. The air between them felt suddenly charged. He could smell a faint, clean scent from her, like cool marble and something metallic he could not place. "My people, we imbibe plasma energy. It is our way. We taste the life force of things. Your politicians taste of ambition. Your soldiers taste of fear. The Vel. Like your professor. Taste of dry logic. What do I taste of? Aiden asked, his voice a whisper. I do not know, she said, her eyes fixed on his. When Caliph drew his knife, I tasted his rage, his fear, his arrogance. It was a storm. And then you looked at him, and you smiled, and everything stopped. All the energy in the room. It just bent around you. I have never tasted anything like it. She took a step back, her composure returning. I am a student of hematology, energy hematology. It is a new field. I am a student of mechanics, Aiden said. But on my world, we have a similar discipline, we call it coffee. It is a brewed bean infusion. It lacks the personal touch of your field, but it achieves a similar result. A small, genuine smile flickered on her face. Coffee. I have read of this. It is a crude stimulant. It is a religious sacrament, Aiden countered, his own lips twitching. And it is the only thing that will get me to the library on time. Tomorrow, she said. Second cycle. She turned and walked away, her form swallowed by the shadows of the corridor. Aiden watched her go, the scent of cool marble lingering in the air. He had a library pass, a new mystery, and a very, very complicated problem. The next day, the cafeteria was a war zone. Not a physical one, but an emotional one. Nira, who had insisted on coming, clutched her head as they walked in. Aiden, I do not like this, she murmured, her face pale. The noise. It is worse today. It is jagged. Someone is amplifying the general xenophobia. It feels directed. Just get your food and sit, Aiden said, his eyes scanning the room. He saw it immediately. A table of mixed-species students, a burly Orion, a pair of sneering Kreen, and a human. A human working with them. They were staring at him. Here we go, Jax muttered, grabbing a tray. Just do not quote physics at them, man. Please. It is too weird. Aiden ignored him. He got his food tray, a simple nutrient paste, a water bulb. He turned to find a seat. The Orion stepped in front of him. Look, everyone! The Orion boomed, his fur bristling. It is the Deathworld predator. Come to hunt in the mess hall. The room went quiet. I am here to eat, Aiden said, his voice calm. We do not like your kind here, human. One of the Kreen hissed, its amphibious features contorted in a sneer. Your planet is filth. You are unbalanced. My planet is a high-gravity, tectonically unstable, Class 12- environment, Aiden replied, his tone conversational, as if explaining a simple problem. It is not filth. It is just demanding. You threatened a Noctari noble, the human at the table said, standing up. He was bigger than Aiden, with the thick muscles of a gravity welder. You think you are tough. No, Aiden said. I think he made a mistake. He brought a knife to an argument about physics. His math was wrong. The suppression field was always going to come back on. He is lying, the Orion roared. He knew the field was down. He planned it. He is a cold-blooded killer. Aiden sighed. He put his tray down on a nearby table. He looked at the Orion, the Kreen, and the human. He looked at the 60 other species in the room, all watching him, waiting for the Deathworlder to explode. You are wrong, Aiden said, his voice cutting through the silence. You want to know what human strength is. You think it is this? He held up his fists. This is just anatomy. This is flesh and bone. This breaks. We are not strong because we are predators. We are strong because we endure. He took a step forward. The Orion tensed. We are strong because when our planet tries to kill us with storms, we build houses that are stronger. When it tries to kill us with earthquakes, we learn to read the tremors and build foundations that give. We are not strong because we fight. We are strong because we cooperate. We are strong because we write contracts. He tapped his temple. Our greatest strength is not our fists. It is our prefrontal cortex. It is the ability to look at a predator, like you, and not attack. It is the ability to calculate, and to decide that you are not worth the energy. It is the ability to respect the law, even when we are being provoked. He looked at the human. You should know this. This is our legacy. This is how we survived. We are not predators. We are persistence. We are cooperation. And we are very, very good at paperwork. The sheer, baffling anticlimax of his speech left the bullies stunned. They were prepared for a fight, for insults, for fear. They were not prepared for a lecture on civic endurance. He is paperwork, the Kreen hissed, completely bewildered. I am going to eat now, Aiden said. He picked up his tray and walked past the Orion. He sat down at an empty table. Jax and Nira slid into the seats opposite him. Jax was staring at him, mouth open. Paperwork, Jax said, his voice full of awe. You just threatened them. With bureaucracy. You are a new kind of scary, Cole. You really are. Aiden just started to eat his nutrient paste. Across the station, in a high-security office in the consular wing, a man watched a silent video feed of the cafeteria confrontation. He was human, but he wore the severe, high-collared uniform of a consortium archon. His face was sharp, intelligent, and utterly devoid of humor. Archon Merrick Solace. He watched Aiden's speech, his fingers steepled. He was not listening to the audio. He was just watching the body language, the provocation, the lack of response, the diffusion. He is not taking the bait, Solace said to the empty room. He is contained, like the report said. He turned off the feed. On his main screen was a draft of a proposal. It was titled, The Guardianship Act, a Proposal for the Containment and Management of High-Risk, Low-Integration Species. He brought up a new file. It was a psychological profile of Aiden Cole. Next to it, he opened a profile of Calith Dre. He drew a line between them, a simple, straight vector. Then he drew a third, connecting them to Seraphine Dre. Friction is the engine of change, Merrick Solace murmured. If he will not provide the conflict, I will simply have to recalibrate the parameters. It is time to increase the pressure. He activated his comms. Activate the tertiary atmospheric resonance. Target the Solari empathy bands. Let us see how our Deathworlder handles. A storm of emotion, stability, after all, must be maintained, at any cost. That evening, Aiden met Seraphine at the Noctari Library. It was less a room of books and more a vault of cold light. Data crystals hung suspended in magnetic fields, glowing with a soft, internal luminescence. It is quiet, Aiden said. It is a place of memory, Seraphine replied. She was nervous. She kept looking at the entrance. I have renewed your access. But the archive you want, the Eridani files, they are restricted, even from me. So, it was a waste of time, Aiden said, his disappointment a sharp, bitter taste. No, she said. She reached into her tunic and pulled out a small, flat data chip. It was old, made of a dark, obsidian-like material. I could not access the official military archive, but I could access the family archive, the Dre family history. My ancestors were present at Eridani. Aiden's heart hammered against his ribs. He reached for the chip. She did not give it to him. She held it tightly. This is an act of treason. Aiden Cole. For me to show this to an outsider. If they find out. I will not tell anyone, he said, his voice low. Seraphine. Why? Because what Caliph did was wrong, and what my family, what the consortium, is doing, it feels wrong too, she said. I am tired of lies. She placed the chip in his hand. It was warm from her skin. There is a file on it. It is very old. It speaks of a bond, a treaty. My people do not just imbibe. In ancient times, we exchanged. We were sick. A dark thirst was killing us. And a line of humans. They healed us. They taught us to control it, to balance it. What file? Aiden asked. It is called the Bloodlight Compact, she said, her voice a whisper. The Bloodlight Compact. It is a legend, a fairy tale, but it binds the Noctari to a specific line of human protectors, a line that was lost. Aiden looked down at the chip. He looked at her. She had just handed him a motive, a legend, and a target. She had defied her own blood, her own laws, for a human she barely knew. Be careful, Aiden Cole, she said, her voice shaking. Reading this, it will make you a part of the story, and my family. They do not like new authors. She turned and left him alone in the cold, glowing library, the weight of an ancient secret heavy in his hand. Aiden returned to his pod in the dark cycle, the station's simulated night. The obsidian chip Seraphine had given him felt warm, almost alive, in his hand. He sat at his terminal, slotted the chip, and bypassed the academic firewalls with a few of Jax's backdoor codes. The drive hummed, and the screen filled with archaic Noctari script, and with a single, unencrypted image file. He clicked it. The image resolved. It was not a file. It was a memory. His memory. He was 9 years old, his legs too short for the chair he sat in, his face reflected in the dark screen of the Alliance newsfeed. His father sat beside him, a stone-faced monolith, his hand gripping Aiden's shoulder so hard it hurt. The newscaster, a placid, three-headed being, was describing the tragedy at Belt Phi. The refugee flotilla, the central head reported, appears to have been attacked by unregistered Noctari raiders. Alliance patrols found no survivors. The screen had flashed to the official investigative footage. A ship, his mother's ship, the Odyssey, torn open like a can. The metal hull was peeled back, revealing the dark, cold vacuum. And on the hull, the evidence, blood, so much blood, splattered, frozen, and torn, as if by teeth. The report was clinical, describing the Noctari as a predatory species, engaging in ritualistic consumption. His 9-year-old self had not cried. He had vibrated with a cold, pure rage, eaten. They had eaten her, his mother, Dr. Sable Cole, the kindest, most logical mind he had ever known, reduced to food. Aiden, his father had said, his voice a broken thing. I am going to make them pay, the 9-year-old Aiden had whispered. His hands clenched so tight, his knuckles were white. I am going to find them, and I am going to make them pay. But even then, in that moment of absolute, searing grief, a small, cold part of his mind, the part his mother had built, had asked a question. Why would a species capable of faster-than-light travel, a species with advanced energy plasma technology, revert to that? It was illogical. It was inefficient. He had made his vow. He would have his revenge. But it would be a revenge his mother would have understood. It would be precise. It would be aimed at the guilty, not the bystander. It would be a revenge based on evidence. Aiden, now a man, sat in his dorm, his heart a cold, steady drum. The file was still open. He closed the memory and opened the text. The Blood Light Compact was not a legend. It was a contract. The script was dense, but the translation software, straining, pulled meaning from it. It described a time, thousands of years ago, when the Naktari were dying. A dark thirst, a genetic madness, was consuming them, turning them into the very monsters the Belt-Phi report had described. And then, the travelers, a line of humans, from a world of high gravity and deep oceans, who had arrived on a lost colony ship. These humans did not die from the Naktari touch. Their plasma energy, their life force, was different. It was stronger, more resonant. And they did not just heal the Naktari. They exchanged, they taught them, as Seraphine had said, to balance. The compact was a symbiotic treaty, a promise of mutual protection. He scrolled down, past the poetry, past the lineage charts, to the Dre family archives, to the files marked Eridani, Belt-Phi. They were all there. The official alliance reports, and next to them, the private Dre family analyses. He found the autopsy files. The official reports showed bodies torn apart by claws and teeth. The private Naktari scans, taken by the first ship on the scene, showed something else. The bodies were intact, but their internal plasma energy had been siphoned, drained dry, not by a being, but by a field. He found the ship-to-ship logs. The Alliance report cited Naktari energy signatures. The Dre analysis showed those signatures were faked. They were a looped recording, broadcast from a third, unidentified ship, a ship that had been broadcasting a chemical, the red mist at Belt-Phi. It was a corrosive, weaponized ion agent, designed to look like a plasma leak, but which had one purpose: to dissolve biological matter and fake a bloodbath. It was all a lie. The raiders, the ritualistic consumption, the evidence. It was all a meticulously crafted, horrific forgery. Aiden's rage did not lessen. It focused. It had been 8 years of hating the wrong people. He had been a fool, a child grieving a ghost story. His mother had not been eaten by Naktari predators. She had been murdered by a third party, and the Naktari had been framed. His terminal chimed, pulling him from the past. A new message from Jax. No text. Just a data packet with a single line. Found your ghost in the machine. Engineering bay. Now. Aiden left the pod. He did not run. He walked, his steps measured, the cold fury in his chest a familiar engine. He found Jax not in the main bay, but in a small, cramped diagnostic node. The air smelled of hot circuits and Jax's nervous sweat. "Cole." "Man," Jax said, his voice low. He was not making eye contact. He was staring at his screen as if it might bite him. "Your consortium plant." "The one in the conduit." It was not a standalone. It was a node in a network, a private one. "It has been chattering since the incident." "Chattering to what?" Aiden asked. "To this." Jax typed a command, and a schematic of the Axiom arc filled the screen. A single sector, C-19, was blinking red. "Maintenance Bay, C-19. It is officially listed as decommissioned, structural instability." "It is supposed to be a cold, dead box." "But it is not," Aiden said. It was a statement, not a question. "It is pulling over 3,000% more power than its sector allocation. It is hiding its energy signature behind the consular wing's main reactor. It is a front, and..." Jax zoomed in, his face tight. "I've been listening to its data chatter. It is encrypted, military grade, But the handshake protocol, it is sloppy. It uses a key image. He brought up a new window. The image was simple, stark, and cold. A blank, featureless white mask. The white masks, Jax whispered, as if saying the name would get them caught. It is. It is a conspiracy theory, man. A ghost story. The boogeymen the consortium uses to clean up problems. People who ask too many questions. They just transfer. They vanish. This is not academic. Aiden. This is Black Ops. It is where they ran the operation from, Aiden said. It is where they staged the classroom attack. It is where the evidence is. Evidence, Jax hissed, finally looking at him. Aiden, this is not a game. These are the people who can make a station full of witnesses misremember a thing. These are the people who just framed your entire species. And they are still here. I am going in, Aiden said. No, you are not. Jax grabbed his arm. Are you insane? That is a literal nest of interstellar spies. Or assassins. Or worse, auditors. You cannot just walk in. I have to, Aiden said, his voice calm. He pulled his arm free. They built a lie around my mother's death. They just built another one around me. I am not letting them build a third. He left Jax in the node and went to the one place he knew she would be, the Central Gardens. The massive, multi-biosphere ring was in its Earth dusk cycle. The air was cool, smelling of pine and damp earth. Seraphine was there, sitting on a bench, not as an exchange student, but as the royal she was. Her posture was perfect, her gaze distant. Aiden did not waste time. He sat beside her, not on the bench, but on the low retaining wall, facing her. Maintenance Bay C-19, he said. Her reaction was all he needed. She did not gasp. She did not startle. She froze. Her entire body went rigid, her void dark eyes locking onto his. The white masks, he added. She let out a single, shaky breath. You are not supposed to know that name. I do. I also know they faked the attack in the classroom, and I know they faked the red mist at Belt Phi 8 years ago. Her carefully constructed composure shattered. She stood up, her face pale, her hands clenched. How could you know that the Belt Phi files are sealed at the highest levels? To speak of it is treason, Aiden asked, standing to face her. You gave me the key. Seraphine. The Bloodlight Compact. The forgeries. My mother was not killed by your people. She was murdered. And the people who did it are in C-19. You cannot go there, she said, her voice a desperate whisper. Aiden, you do not understand. The white masks, they are not just consortium. They are zealots. They are a faction. They believe in purity by order. My uncle, Calith's father, he is in league with them. He has been trading family secrets, our technology, for consortium backing, for power. Then he is a fool, Aiden said. I am going to that bay. No, she grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. It is a fortress. You are one human. They will kill you before you even reach the door. It is suicide. It is a maintenance bay, Aiden said, his voice hard. And I am a mechanics student. I am not going to fight them. I am going to expose them. She looked at him, her eyes searching his face, seeing the absolute, unbending resolve. The same resolve that had faced down her cousin. She saw a man who had just had his entire history rewritten, and who was now moving, not in a spiral of grief, but in a straight, cold line. You are a fool, Aiden Cole, she whispered. A hopeless, Deathworld fool. She let go of his arm. If we are caught, my family will not just disown me. They will cleanse me from the bloodline. If we do not go, Aiden said, they will cleanse my entire planet from the Alliance. She closed her eyes. Then I will go with you. You need my access codes. The bay may be old, but its checkpoints are run through the consular grid. My credentials will get us past the sentries. But if we die... We die with evidence, Aiden said. They did not speak again. They moved through the station's service tunnels, a ghost and a Deathworlder, bypassing the main transit lifts. The tunnels were dark, cramped, and smelled of ozone and lubricant. Seraphine moved with a silent, liquid grace, her consular codes opening sealed bulkhead after sealed bulkhead. They reached the door to C-19. It was old, pitted, and scorched from a long-forgotten plasma fire. But the lock was brand new, a gleaming black consortium-grade maglock. "This is it," Seraphine whispered, her hand hovering over the panel. "Once I open this, we are committing treason, against the Ark, against the consortium, and against my crown." "Open it," Aiden said. She pressed her hand to the panel. The lock chimed, a soft, traitorous green, and the heavy door hissed open. The bay was not decommissioned. It was a staging ground. Racks of pulse rifles lined one wall, a high-speed communications array. Its antenna, pointed directly at the consortium Archon's tower, filled the far corner. And in the center, on a workbench, was a simple wooden crate. Aiden walked to it. Seraphine guarded the door, her eyes wide, her breathing shallow. Aiden opened the crate. It was filled with white, shimmering knives. He picked one up. It was light, too light. The bone was a molded polymer. The optical field on the edge was a simple, low-wattage chemical strip. He pressed his thumb to the emitter. It was not even warm. "It is a prop," he said, his voice flat. He turned it over in his hand. A theatrical prop. A good one, but a fake. "But the energy signature?" Seraphine said, stepping closer. "In the classroom. I felt it." "The signature was faked by the jammer," Aiden said. His eyes scanned the workbench, a charging rack, tools, and a small, silver audio recorder. He picked it up. Its last active light was blinking. Yesterday. He hit play. Caleth Dre's voice filled the silent bay, thin and reedy with fear. "This is insane. You want me to attack a human in class with this. It is a toy." A second voice, filtered, metallic, and dripping with smug superiority. The voice of Archon Merrick Solis. "It is a symbol, Lord Dre. A prop, as you say. Your performance is what matters. It is a simple test of your family's loyalty. The consortium needs to know who its friends are." "But he is a Deathworlder," Caleth's voice cracked. He might fight back. He will not." Solis's voice was certain. "The suppression field will fail. You will make your point. You will show his instability. Then the field will reactivate. You will be seen as a victim of his predatory calm. It is all arranged. Fail this test. And your family's trade patents, their shipping licenses. They will all be reviewed. Pass. And your family's position is secured for a generation. You just need to perform." The recording ended. Aiden stood in the silence, the prop knife in one hand, the recorder in the other. Seraphine sank against the bulkhead, her legs giving way. He was a victim. All this time. He was just a pawn." She looked up at Aiden, her aristocratic mask gone, replaced by a raw, burning shame. "I am Seraphine Dre," she said, her voice hoarsely. Crown Princess of the Naktari Empire. I was not an exchange student. She took a ragged breath. I came to Axiom to find this rot, the corruption in my court. Caliph. He is my cousin. His father, my uncle, is a fool, deep in debt to the consortium. And Marek Solis. He is the puppeteer. He is using my people, using your people, to start a fire, to justify his guardianship act. Aiden looked at the fake knife. His quest for revenge. It was obsolete. He had spent 8 years hating the Naktari for his mother's death. But they did not kill her. They were a tool. He had spent the last 2 days hating Caliph. But Caliph was a pawn. His rage, cold and vast, turned. It locked onto a new target. Marek Solis. But no. Solis was just an agent, an ambitious middle manager in a system that rewarded this. His anger, a vast, cold ocean, searched for a shore to break on, and found none. Who do you take revenge on the consortium, an entity? How do you fight a concept? How do you punch bureaucracy? His calm buzzed, a frantic, desperate pulse. Jax. Aiden, get back to the pod. Now it is Nira. Something's wrong. They ran. They did not use the service tunnels. They ran through the main corridors, pushing past startled students and confused security bots. They burst into their pod. Nira was on the floor, convulsing, her hands clawed, clutching at her temples. She was screaming, a high, thin sound of pure agony. Too loud, make it stop. Oh, gods, it is so. Red, make it stop. Jax was white, his hands hovering over her, afraid to touch her. I do not know what happened. She was fine. Then she just started screaming. Said the air was full of hate. Aiden's eyes swept the room. He saw it. On the wall, the pod's main environmental sensor, which usually glowed a soft blue, was pulsing with a faint, subsonic red. It was a frequency, a focused, tertiary band atmospheric resonance. The one Archon Marek Solis had ordered in the cafeteria. It was an empathic weapon, a focused, invisible beam of pure, synthesized rage, fear, and xenophobia, aimed directly at the most sensitive being on the station, a Solari empath. This was the retaliation. They are trying to kill her, Aiden said, his voice a low, deathly calm. Jax, shut it down. Get it off this node. I cannot, Jax yelled, his fingers flying over his terminal. It is not local. It is a station-wide broadcast, focused right here. It is. Oh, gods. It is designed to trigger a recursive emotional cascade, a feedback loop. It is amplifying her own fear. It is literally scaring her to death. Nira's scream cut off. She arched her back, her body rigid, and her breathing stopped. Medbay, Aiden snapped. Now! He did not wait. He scooped her up. She was impossibly light, a bird-bone child in his arms. Lifts are locked for the sleep cycle, Jax shouted. We have to go through the gardens. Seraphine was at the door. No, Aiden, not the gardens. It is on its high-gravity maintenance cycle. And the ion mist. It is not breathable for humans. It will cause ion-induced pneumonia, Aiden finished, his voice a gravelly rasp. I have breathed worse. He looked at Jax. Lead. He looked at Seraphine. Watch our back. He ran. The gardens were a nightmare. The gravity shifted, slamming him with the force of 3 Gs, his knees buckling. He kept his feet, his Deathworlder muscles, built to fight Earth's pull, screaming but holding. He shielded Nira's body with his own. The next step, the gravity vanished, and he was leaping, pushing off a bulkhead, floating for a heart-stopping second before the gravity snapped back on, heavier this time. The ion mist was thick, a white, clinging fog that smelled of static and bleach. It burned. It filled his lungs with what felt like hot sand. Each breath, a new fire. He did not slow down. He did not cough. He just ran. This was survival. This was the gift of a planet that hated you. It was not about fighting. It was about enduring. It was about putting one foot in front of the other when reality itself was trying to rip you apart. They burst through the medbay doors, a strange, desperate tableau. A human, his face a mask of iron, carrying a dying Solari, flanked by a frantic engineer and a terrified princess. Table. Aiden roared. A medical bot. A sleek chrome spider. Word over. Acute emotional cascade detected, it chimed. Secondary diagnosis. Severe ion-induced pneumonia. Subject, male human. It swiveled its optical sensors to Aiden. Subject, Solari, critical. It deployed a dozen tiny arms, injecting Nira with stabilizers, sliding a breather over her face. Aiden leaned against the wall, his lungs feeling like two bags of burning gravel. He finally, explosively, couched, a harsh, racking sound. He looked at Seraphine, her face a mask of awe and terror. He looked at Jax, who was just staring. His revenge. It was Ash. It was a child's dream. He looked at Nira, his friend, his family, broken and dying on that table. A proxy, a piece of collateral damage in their game to get to him. They wanted me to be an animal, he whispered, the words tearing his throat. In the classroom, they failed. He coughed again. In the cafeteria, they failed. So they did this. They attacked my family. He pushed himself off the wall. The pain was irrelevant. Revenge on one man. It is inefficient, he rasped, the words burning. Marek, Calith. They are just symptoms. The disease is the system. The white masks. The consortium. He locked eyes with Seraphine. The terror in her gaze was replaced by a dawning, steely resolve. Seraphine, he said, his voice flat and cold. You said you were investigating corruption. I am no longer interested in revenge. He took a step, his body screaming, but he stood tall. I am interested in dismantling it. We have the prop knife. We have the audio log. It is not enough. They will consult it away. Deep fake. They will say, we need something bigger. Something. They cannot deny. He had made his choice. The hunt had changed. He was no longer hunting a ghost from his past. He was hunting a living, breathing system. And he was going to tear it down, piece by bureaucratic piece. The grand hearing chamber of the Axiomarch was a theater of power. It was not designed for justice. It was designed for consensus, vast, tiered, and acoustically perfect. It could seat 5,000, with standing room for 1,000 more. Today, it was full. The public galleries were a chaotic mosaic of 312 species, all chattering, hissing, or resonating with nervous energy. The holographic broadcast drones, usually silent observers, hovered in aggressive clusters, their red live lights painting the air. Down on the floor, the mood was colder. Academics, consular officials, and alliance delegates sat in rigid blocks. Aiden Cole sat with the small, defiant human delegation. He had spent the last 8 hours in a medbay observation room, his lungs slowly recovering from the ion mist, the burns in his throat healing under a dermal synthesizer. He was not 100%. He was, by his own estimation, at about 60%. It would have to be enough. To his left sat Jax Rourke, his terminal open on his lap, a direct, illegal data feed running from the chamber's systems. To his right sat Nira Thal. She was pale, her large empathic eyes clouded with pain, but she was upright. She wore a specialized acoustic damper around her neck, a piece of Solari tech designed to muffle the noise of the crowd, and, she had pointed out, the smug, oily texture of the consortium's legal team. Professor Hallex Ventor sat in the row behind them, a silent, obsidian mountain. In the Noctari delegation, Seraphine Dre was in her usual place, disguised, her face a mask of calm she did not feel. "All rise for the Archon," a synthesized voice announced. Archon Marek Solis entered from a private entrance. He wore his formal consortium uniform, the high white collar framing his sharp, intelligent face. He did not look like a conspirator. He looked like a concerned, overburdened administrator, a man forced to make difficult decisions for the greater good. He took the central podium, and the chamber's acoustics amplified his sigh of preparation. "Members of the Alliance, faculty of the Axiom Arc, esteemed students," he began, his voice a smooth, modulated baritone. "We are gathered today at a crossroads. This great station was founded on a principle of optimistic integration. We believed, and I still believe, that disparate species can learn together, can build together." He paused, his face etched with regret. "But optimism must be tempered with realism. Stability is the prerequisite for progress. And recently, that stability has been tested." He brought up the data. A holographic display filled the air above him. It was the Human Threat Index, a graph showing a terrifying vertical spike. In the last 72 hours, acts of xenophobic conflict on this station have risen by 900%. Fear is rampant, and fear is a fire that, if left unchecked, will consume us all. "The catalyst, sadly, is clear," Solis said, his voice dropping. "It is what the media now calls the knife incident." He played the recording. It was not the raw feed. It was an edited masterpiece. It showed Calith Dre, agitated, his features contorted. It showed the chaos of the classroom. And then, it cut to a horrifying, isolated close-up of Aiden Cole, sitting in the silence, a slow, cold smile spreading across his human face as the Noctari noble reacted to his provocation. A collective gasp, a hiss, a rumble of disgust went through the chamber. "We have here," Solis said, his voice dripping with reluctant condemnation, "a tragic mismatch. A noble, if rash, member of the Noctari aristocracy, and a representative of a new species, a Deathworlder, a species forged in a crucible of such violence that its calm is more terrifying than its rage, a species genetically predisposed to aggression, and, as we see, to a predator's cold, calculating assessment." He gestured to the frozen image of Aiden's smile. This is the new reality we must face. This is the instability. Therefore," Solis continued, "it is with a heavy heart that the consortium must propose a temporary measure, the Guardianship Act, a simple, prudent, and limited restriction on the enrollment and access of species from high-risk worlds, Class 10 and above, effective immediately, pending Alliance review." The human delegation erupted. "This is an outrage, a bigoted, racist." Solis held up a hand. "It is a sad necessity, a quarantine, if you will, until we can be sure the infection of instability does not spread." The hearing is now open for comment. A dozen delegates tried to activate their microphones, but a new voice cut through the air, clear and unamplified from the human section. "I request to speak." Archon Merrick Solis looked down. Aiden Cole was on his feet. He was not yelling. His voice was raw from his injuries, but it was steady. "Mr. Cole," Solis said, a look of profound pity on his face. "You are the center of this. I do not think." "I request to speak," Aiden repeated, louder. "Under Axiom Arc Bylaw 32, Section 4, as the registered victim of the incident in question, and as a material witness to the engineering." A sharp, grinding sound came from the faculty section. Professor Hallex Ventor had stood up. "The Archon is correct," Ventor's voice grated, the translator smoothing it. "This is highly irregular. However, the academic bylaw is clear. The student must be heard. It is a teachable moment." Merrick Solis was trapped by his own PR. To deny the victim, his voice would look like tyranny. He smiled, a thin, tight expression. "Very well. A teachable moment it is. Mr. Cole, the podium is yours. Please, enlighten us." Aiden walked to the podium. The broadcast drones swarmed him, their red lights like angry eyes. He was just a human, a young male. His gray tunic rumpled, his face pale and bruised from his run through the gardens. He looked small. He looked like a victim. He stood at the podium. He did not look at the crowd. He looked directly at Merrick Solis. "Archon Solis," Aiden's voice, now amplified, was a harsh rasp. "Your entire presentation is built on a single, foundational error. You are treating a piece of theater as an act of aggression." A murmur went through the crowd. "I am a student of space mechanics and interplanetary ethics," Aiden said. "So let us examine the mechanics and the ethics of your evidence. Let us begin with the facts, not the ones you presented, the ones you omitted." He looked at Jax. "Now." Jax's terminal flared. He hijacked the holographic display. Solis's threat index vanished, replaced by a complex schematic. "Fact 1, Aiden said. "The suppression field failure." It was not a failure. It was a bypass. A physical hardware implant. Consortium grade. Military spec. A new image appeared. A scan of the device from the conduit. Installed in Conduit 34 Delta and networked to Maintenance Bay C-19. The consular officials began to whisper. C-19 was their sector. Fact 2. The jamming signal. The audio file played, the low-frequency thrum that had filled the classroom. Not a random fluctuation. It was a targeted broadcast, designed to mimic a drive core imbalance. Its sloppy resonance signature is a perfect one-to-one match for signals originating from, again, Maintenance Bay C-19. He was building a case. This was not a victim's plea. This was an engineer's report. Fact 3, Aiden said, his voice dropping. The weapon. He reached into his tunic. The security guards tensed. Aiden slowly, deliberately, pulled out the fake bone optic knife from C-19. He held it up. The chemical light strip glowed weakly under the chamber's lights. This is not a Noctari ritual weapon. A real bone optic blade has a modulated energy field. This, he tapped the blade. It made a dull thunk. This is a molded polymer prop. It has a single, low-wattage chemical illuminator. It is a toy. He tossed the prop onto the podium. It clattered, a cheap, plastic sound that echoed through the silent chamber. And finally, Fact 4, Aiden rasped. The motive. Archon Solis. You suggest I provoked Lord Calith. You suggest he acted out of aristocratic rage. I suggest he acted out of duress. He looked at Jax. Play the file. This is unauthorized, Solis shouted. Security cut his feed. But Jax was faster. The audio log from C-19, the conversation between Solace and Calith, blasted through the chamber. Calith's voice, thin with fear. "This is insane. You want me to attack a human." And Solace's voice, smooth and cold. "It is a symbol, Lord Dre, a prop. Your performance is what matters. It is a simple test of your family's loyalty. Fail this test, and your family's trade patents. They will all be reviewed." The chamber erupted. It was not a murmur. It was a roar of outrage, disbelief, and political panic. Merrick Solace's face was a mask of white-hot fury. He slammed his fist on his console. "Lies, fabrication, security. Arrest this traitor." The broadcast feed cut. The audio died. The holographic display went blank. "This is slander." Solace's unamplified voice was a venomous shout. "Fabricated data from a compromised, unstable student. He is a Deathworlder. He is genetically predisposed to this, to deceit, to manipulation, to aggression. You want proof. You want the real human threat." He jammed his controls again. The main screen behind him, dark until now, flickered to life. He replayed the clip, the one from the classroom, the close-up, Aiden's smile, in ultra-slow motion, zoomed in until it filled the 50-foot screen. It was unsettling. It was cold. It was, as Solace had said, the look of a predator assessing its prey. "Look at it!" Solace screamed, pointing. "This is not the face of a victim. This is the face of a predator. This is the genetic inherent aggression of a Class 12 species. This is the real human threat. This is why they must be contained." The chamber was silent again. A new, cold silence. The delegates looked from the monstrous, smiling image on the screen to the small, pale human on the podium. They were afraid. Aiden Cole stood in the silence, under the full, awful glare of that 50-foot-tall accusation. He was being defined, dissected, and destroyed by a single, involuntary reflex. He looked at Solace, who was breathing heavily, his face triumphant. He had won. He had turned Aiden's own evidence against him, reframing it as proof of his cunning and deceit. Aiden took a slow breath, his damaged lungs aching. He looked at the delegates. He looked at the broadcast drones, which had flickered back on, their operators clearly defying the Archon. And Aiden Cole, for the second time, smiled. It was the exact same smile. The slow, cold, assessing, Deathworlder smile. The chamber held its breath. He leaned into the now-dead microphone, knowing the drones were close enough. Their sensitive audio would pick him up. "You are wrong, Archon Solace." His voice was a quiet rasp, but it carried in the dead silent room. "This smile is not a threat," he said, holding the smile, letting them all see it. "It is not aggression. It is assessment. It is the self-control of a species that was born on a planet of storms. It is the calm of an engineer who sees the critical flaw in your machine. It is risk assessment. It is the realization that the man with the knife and the man pointing the camera are both losing their argument with reality." He is correct. The new voice was female, clear, and full of a cold, regal power. A woman was walking down the central aisle. She was Naktari, but she was not wearing student grays. She was wearing the formal, obsidian and silver armor of the Naktari Royal Guard. She did not look at Aiden. She walked past him, toward the podium. She reached the front. She stopped. She looked at Merrick Solace. "And I can prove it," she said. With a single, fluid motion, she unclasped the simple student pin at her collar. She let it fall to the floor. She unclasped her hair, letting it fall in a silver cascade. And on her brow, now visible, was the unmistakable, blazing signet of the crown. "I am Seraphine Dre," she announced, her voice now booming through the reactivated audio system. "Crown Princess of the Noctari Empire. And this entire hearing, is a lie. A lie fabricated by Archon Solus, and by my treasonous uncle, Lord Valerius Dre, in a pathetic attempt to curry favor with the consortium." The room dissolved. Noctari delegates were on their feet, some bowing, some shouting in outrage. The media drones dived like hungry birds. A crown princess disguised. "Archon Solus uses my people as his monsters," Seraphine said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "He plays on your fears of us. He shows you a fake knife. He tells you we are predators." She activated the podium. Jax, anticipating, linked her terminal. She did not project schematics. She projected an ancient, illuminated manuscript. "This," she said, "is the Blood Light Compact. It is the most sacred, most secret treaty in our history. Archon Solus paints us as the predators of humanity. The truth, our civilization, our very sanity, was a gift from a lost line of humans. Humans who cured our dark thirst. Humans who taught us balance. We are not their predators. We are their sworn protectors." She looked directly at Aiden, a look of profound, historical weight. "The compact binds us to a line of humans who carry a unique resonance. A resonance our ancestors called the calm heart. A resonance that was last documented in the genetic code of Dr. Sable Cole." Aiden's heart stopped. His mother was. And Jax Rourke's voice suddenly cut in, overriding the system. "Speaking of signals, the signal from C-19, the one controlling the bypass, the one used by the white masks. It is the exact same parent signal that Archon Solus used to broadcast an empathic weapon 2 days ago." "It is true," Nirathal cried out, standing up, her voice shaking but furious. She ripped the damper from her neck. "I am a Solari empath. Archon Solus, I felt your manufactured hate. You tried to murder me with a sound wave to silence my friend. You did not orchestrate a proxy conflict. You orchestrated an assassination attempt. This is your stability." The case was collapsing. Solus was done. And Professor Hallex Ventor's grinding voice cut through the noise. He was at the faculty podium. "The logic is flawed." He projected his own simulation. A massive, complex model of the Axiom Ark's security grid. The consortium hardware, the log file, it all shows the system was green. This is true. He zoomed in on a single line of code, a long, impossibly complex string. "However, I have run the simulation, this bypass, to fool the system into logging green while being red, requires a unique, single-use decryption key. It is impossible to fabricate. It is impossible to hack. It can only be generated." He looked, his obsidian head turning slowly, at Merrick Solus. "There is only one source for such a key. It must be generated by the station's highest authority. It is an Archon-level security override. Only one person on this station could have authorized that bypass. The person who is the Archon. Checkmate." The chamber was dead silent. The political officers were staring at Solus. The media was broadcasting. Merrick Solus was trapped, exposed, and finished. He stood there for a long 10 seconds. He looked defeated. His face was pale, his hands shaking. Then, his face hardened. He looked up, and he smiled. It was not a political smile. It was not the predator's smile from the screen. It was a real smile. Cold, sharp, and genuinely, terrifyingly amused. I see, he said, his voice quiet. Treason. All of you. He gestured to Seraphine. Colluding with a foreign power. He gestured to Nira and Jax. Corrupting the systems of this station. He looked at Aiden. And you, the destabilizing element. You have all, in your righteousness, undermined the very stability this station requires to survive. He tapped a black button on his consular comm, a button that was not on the standard podium. As Archon of the Consortium and ultimate authority on this station, I am hereby declaring a state of emergency under the Stability Act, Clause 4. All academic and civilian authority is suspended, pending a full security review. Red lights began to flash. The doors to the chamber sealed with the thud of magnetic locks. An alarm began to sound. Not a fire alarm, a security alarm, a containment alarm. This station, Solace said, his voice now booming with authority, will be cleansed of its destabilizing elements. The main doors at the back of the chamber did not just open. They exploded inward, ripped from their hinges, and soldiers poured in. They were not the blue uniformed Axiom Arc security. They were armored, floor to ceiling, their faces hidden by blank, reflective gold visors. They carried heavy-grade pulse rifles. On their white and gold armor was the sunburst insignia of the Consortium's private Black Ops Army, the Heliant Guard. They did not arrest anyone. They simply formed a perimeter, their rifles aimed at the crowd. Merrick Solis picked up the prop knife from the podium. He tossed it, idly, in his hand. He looked down at Aiden Cole. "The hearing is over, Mr. Cole," he said, his voice full of a terrible, newfound warmth. "The real lesson has just begun." Panic was a wave. It washed over the 5,000 delegates in the grand hearing chamber, a multi-species roar of terror. The blast door's ceiling was a sound of finality. The arrival of the Heliant Guard was a declaration of war. Order, Merrick Solis's voice, amplified now by his private comms, cut through the noise. Order, you will be processed. You will be categorized. This is a cleansing, not a riot. Remain in your seats. A fool, a delegate from the Kreen worlds, stood up, hissing in protest. "This is illegal. The Alliance Charter." A Heliant soldier did not look at him. He simply raised his rifle and fired. A blue-white stun bolt, thick as a man's arm, struck the Kreen. The delegate did not cry out. He just froze. His body flash-fossilized in a rictus of indignation, before toppling over with a heavy, chitinous thud. The chamber went dead silent. "As I said," Solis continued, his voice calm, "this is a cleansing." He turned, his private guard of Heliant soldiers surrounding him, and began to walk toward the private exit. He pointed, not at Aiden, but at Seraphine. "The princess. Secure her. She is a person of interest. The rest are irrelevant. Lock down the station." "Aiden!" Jax's voice was a tight whisper, his fingers flying across his terminal. He is cutting the main power grid. Not just here. The whole station." A second later, the lights died. It was not a gradual dimming. It was an amputation. The main lights, the holographic displays, the glowing podiums, all gone. The only illumination came from the faint, red emergency strips on the floor and the terrifying reflective gold visors of the Heliant Guard, which now glowed with their own internal, infrared light. The station's primary hum died. The silence was heavier, more terrifying than the noise. It was replaced by a new sound. The groan of the station itself. The massive, engineered structure, suddenly without its primary gravimetric stabilization and life support, was protesting. "Jax!" Aiden's voice was a low rasp in the dark. He did not sound panicked. He sounded awake. Status. Primary power grid is offline, Jax whispered, his screen the only source of green light in their section. He has locked us in. We are on emergency battery, which means... Oh, hell. Life support is critical. Pressure equalization is failing. The station is... It is going to start popping its seals. He is not just cleansing. Seraphine's voice was a cold thread of fury in the dark. He is breaking the arc. He will blame this riot, on us. Professor, Aiden called out to the row behind him. Ventor, we need an exit. A massive obsidian hand landed on Aiden's shoulder. The Archon has miscalculated. Ventor's translated voice grated, somehow audible, his own internal systems running on a private power source. He has sealed the main doors, but he has forgotten the student exits, designed for energetic evacuations. He pointed. There, a maintenance duct. It leads to the gardens. The world gardens, Jax breathed. Aiden, that is the long way, and it is not safe. The biospheres, they will be depressurizing. The local fauna. It is the only way, Aiden said. He grabbed Nira's hand. She was shaking, her empathic senses drinking in the raw, unfiltered terror of 10,000 beings. Nira, can you walk? I can feel them, she whispered, her eyes wide with tears and the red reflection of the emergency lights. They are so scared. Good, Aiden said, his voice shockingly gentle. Focus on it. Find me the least scared. Find me the ones who are not panicking. Find me the other Deathworlders. He raised his voice, not a shout, but a caring command that cut the darkness. Everyone who wants to live on me, we are leaving. We are not being categorized. This was a new signal, not a plea, a plan. A ripple of motion in the dark. 2 dozen students, a mixed species cohort, rose from their seats. A silent, terrified migration. An Orion, 2 humans from the engineering corps, a handful of Solari who huddled around Nira, and, surprisingly, Professor Ventor himself. The Heliant Guard, hearing the motion, turned. Their visors cut red swaths through the dark. No movement remain. Thud. Professor Ventor had thrown a podium. The entire 300-kilo frantic alloy podium. It sailed through the air and crushed the lead Heliant soldier. Academic protocol, Ventor's voice boomed, dictates that I, as faculty, am responsible for student safety. I find your presence non-conducive to a learning environment. Go, Aiden roared. They ran. They scrambled into the maintenance duct, a dark, square hole, as stun bolts began to fly, painting the dark chamber with blue-white streaks of deathly light. They tumbled out into the main transit corridor of the World Gardens, and it was pure chaos. The station was in night mode, which meant the artificial suns of the biospheres were dark, but the emergency systems were failing. Alarms were blaring, a dissonant, multi-species chorus of warnings. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes. The air smelled of... Something was wrong. It was not just the damp earth of the gardens. It was... acrid. Pressure leaks, Aiden coughed, his healing lungs protesting. He tore a strip from his tunic, dipped it in a leaking irrigation pipe, and tied it over Nira's mouth. Breathe through this. Jax, where are we? And where is the data spire? We are in the rainforest biome, Jax said, his terminal flashing. The spire. It is on the other side. Through the... Oh, no. Through the tundra biome and the variable gravity experimental zone. It is 8 kilometers. Aiden. And the station. She is crying. Listen. Aiden went still. He held up a hand. The others froze. He was listening. Not to the alarms. Not to the screaming. He was listening to the metal. He had his ear almost pressed to a primary structural support. He could hear, beneath the chaos, the high, thin scream of a titanium alloy cable, taking on a strain it was not designed for. The sound of stress. "This way," Aiden said, pointing, not at the main path, but at a tiny, overgrown service hatch. "The main walkway is compromised. The floor supports are singing. They are about to go." How do you know that?" one of the engineering students asked, his face pale. "On my world," Aiden said, not stopping. "We have things called mountains and avalanches. You learn to listen to the sound the snow makes before it decides to kill you. Metal sings the same song." He led them, a strange, multi-species Pied Piper, through the guts of the station. He was not just walking. He was sensing. He navigated by senses the others did not possess. He smelled the air. "Too much copper," he would murmur. "A power line is down. We go left." He would stop, his hand on a bulkhead. "This wall is too cold. Vacuum on the other side. We go right." He was a Deathworlder, and for the first time in his life, he was not just surviving his environment, he was reading it. They rounded a corner, into the tundra biome, a vast, open space chilled to a sub-zero temperature, the artificial snow now lit by the red flashing of the alarms. And they were not alone. A group of Noctari, 20 or 30 of them, were standing there. They were not in student grays. They were in dark, aristocratic robes, extremists. And in their lead, his face a mask of rage and confusion, was Lord Caleth Dre. He was holding a real pulse pistol. "Princess," he snarled, his voice echoing in the cold air. He was not looking at Aiden. He was looking at Seraphine. You shamed me. You shamed our blood. You stood with that." He gestured at Aiden. "Over your own kind." "He was freed," Seraphine whispered, stepping in front of Aiden. "Merrick. He let Caleth out. He armed him, too, to cleanse his own failed experiment." "Our blood is sacred, cousin," Caleth roared, his voice cracking. He was on the edge, a man broken by a system, and now lashing out at the only target he had left. You defiled it, by defending food." He raised the pistol, his hand shaking, aiming not at Seraphine, but at Aiden. "No," Seraphine screamed. She did not move back. She did not hide. She spread her arms wide, blocking Aiden with her own body. She was in her full royal armor, but she was unprotected. "Caleth," she shouted, and her voice. It was not the voice of a student. It was the voice of a queen. It was a voice of absolute, ancestral command. "You speak of blood. You have forgotten your own Halen Valkyrie." She spoke the old tongue, and she did not just speak it. She projected it. "You have forgotten the compact. You have forgotten the dark thirst that nearly destroyed us. You have forgotten the oath." She turned, just enough, her hand reaching back, finding Aiden's, her cold fingers lacing with his. "Our blood does not hunt this line, you fool. Our blood protects it. Kalen Valseraphim. Blood protects humanity." Caleth hesitated. The word, the law. It was in his bones. He was confused, his rage fighting with millennia of genetic programming. It was all the time Aiden needed. From the shadows, a Heliant soldier, one of Merrick's cleaners, who had been tracking Caleth, rose up. He had his stun rifle aimed, not at the Noctari, but at Seraphine. "Traitor!" The soldier's voice crackled. Aiden saw it. He did not think. He acted. He did not shove Seraphine. He did not have time. He moved. His perceptions shifted. He did not just see the stun bolt. He felt its vector. He felt the kinetic potential of the soldier's arm. He felt the weak, groaning strut in the ceiling above the soldier. He felt everything. His hand shot out. He did not touch the soldier. He did not touch the bolt. He touched the strut. Or, rather, he pushed at it. With his mind, it was not telekinesis. It was mechanics. It was his gravity-adaptive anomaly. It was his vector sense. He could feel the lines of force, the gravimetric stresses, in the world around him. And he could nudge them. He pushed at the vector of the strut. It was already under 10 Gs of stress. He just added 1 more ounce. The strut shattered. A 2-ton piece of metal, cabling, and ice fell from the ceiling. It did not hit the soldier. It hit the space between the soldier and Seraphine. The stun bolt, its path now deflected by the sudden, massive gravimetric shear of the falling tonnage, bent. It curved in midair and slammed, uselessly, into the wall. Simultaneously, Aiden pulled. He pulled on the vector of a sliding blast door, 100 meters away. That was stuck in the ice. He pulled it. Shut. The sound of the falling strut, the crack of the deflected bolt, and the slam of the blast door, 100 meters away. It all happened in the same second. Silence. Everyone stared. Kalith, the extremists, the Helian soldier, Jax, Nira. Seraphine turned, her eyes wide, her hand still clutched in his. What? How? Aiden was breathing heavily, his nose bleeding from the sudden, intense mental strain. I am a mechanic, he panted. I fixed the broken door. You bent the light, Jack said, his voice pure, unadulterated awe. Aiden, you are not just a gravity adaptive. You are a gravity mutant. You are a vector adept. That is theoretical. Later, Aiden rasped, wiping the blood from his nose. The Heliant soldier, recovering, raised his rifle again. Kill them all. No. Kalith Dre's voice. He had lowered his pistol. He was staring at Aiden, not with hate, but with a terrible dawning understanding. He had seen the bolt bend. He had heard his cousin's oath. She is right, Kalith said, his voice hollow. She spoke the oath. He saved her. He is protected. I have my orders, the soldier shouted. Kalith turned. He did not look like a broken pawn. He looked Noctari. And I have my honor. He raised his pistol and shot the Heliant soldier. Aiden did not wait. He pushed. Not with his mind. He shoved Kalith, hard, to the ground. Get down. An explosion ripped the air where Kalith had been standing. A second Heliant soldier, a sniper, on the gantry above. The bridge, Aiden roared, pointing. The data spire. It is that way. Go. They ran. All of them. The students. Jax, Nira, Ventor, and now Kalith and the handful of Noctari extremists who had, in a single, bizarre moment, switched sides. Revenge had just been rendered obsolete by theology. Aiden had just saved the man who had tried to kill him. He had not even thought about it. It was just physics. Kalith was a mass. The explosion was a vector. The solution was simple. Aiden, Seraphine panted, running beside him, their hands still locked. You saved him. He was in the wrong place. Aiden panted back. You, your energy, she said, her voice strange. She was tasting him, in the middle of a war zone. It is wrong. It is pulsing. It, it has 3 beats. It is. My heart, he gasped, his lungs burning. It is. Adaptive. It is. Beautiful, she whispered. It is. The key. The calm heart. It is. The cure. For the thirst. They burst into the data spire. It was a vast, cylindrical room, the central hub of the Axiom Ark's interstellar broadcast system. A pillar of light pulsed in the center. There, Jax yelled, running to a terminal. The primary upload node, we can upload everything. The C-19 audio, the bypass scans the original, unedited footage from the classroom. Do it, Aiden said, as Professor Ventor and the Noctari began to seal the blast doors. I am in, Jax shouted. But he is here. To Solace. He is trying to wipe the core. He has initiated a local self-destruct. An alarm, a new one, a high-pitched, screaming wail began. System purge in 30 seconds, a synthesized voice announced. I cannot stop it, Jax yelled. But I can beat it, I can back up the core. Before it wipes, I just need more time. How much time? Aiden yelled. I do not know. The purge is. It is physical. He is overloading the main compression pylon. It is going to shatter. Aiden looked up. The pylon. The main, articulated column that held the data core. It was shaking. He could see the stress fractures forming. He could feel its vectors. They were wrong. How much time, Jax? Aiden roared. Give me. 18 seconds, Jax screamed. I need 18 seconds of a stable signal. System purge in 20 seconds. It is going to blow, Nira screamed, pointing. The pylon was glowing red. No, Aiden said. He walked toward the pylon. Aiden, no, Seraphine screamed, her hand reaching for him. He did not stop. He walked up to the base of the 20-ton, vibrating, superheated compression pylon. He put his hands on it, and he pushed, not with his muscles, with his mind, with his heart. He found the vectors, the dozens, the hundreds of shear forces, of torque, of gravimetric stress, that were tearing it apart. And he held them. He did not stop them. He could not. But he rerouted them. He balanced them. He took the impossible, chaotic energies, and he harmonized them. 12 seconds, Jax yelled. Aiden's body screamed. The blood from his nose was a river. He could feel everything. He could feel the microfractures in his own bones, a sympathetic resonance. He could feel the strain in his own heart, his 3-beat pulse hammering, trying to match the frequency of the machine. 8 seconds. He was dying. The force was too much. The pylon was winning. Aiden. Seraphine was there. She was not running. She was not hiding. She wrapped her arms around him, from behind, pressing her body flat against his, her hands clutching his chest. I cannot stop it, he gasped, the words agony. You do not have to, she whispered in his ear, her voice fierce. You just have to hold, and you are not alone. She bit him, not in the neck, She bit. Her own lip. She drew her own blood. And she pushed. She was channeling. She was giving him her energy, her plasma. It was not a feeding. It was a transfusion. It was the compact. He felt it. A jolt of cold, silver, ancient energy. It poured into him. It did not heal him. It stabilized him. It wrapped around his 3-beat heart and held it. 2 seconds. The pylon. Held. 1. Backup. Complete. Jack screamed. Upload. Sent. Aiden, let go. The pylon exploded. The self-destruct hit. A wave of pure white-hot plasma fire. Seraphine threw them, with a strength he did not know she possessed. She threw them, behind a bulkhead. The world went white and hot. And then, black. The blackness was absolute, but it was not cold. It was warm, and it smelled of ozone, burnt alloy, and the faint, metallic marble scent of Seraphine. Aiden Cole's first conscious thought was not one of panic. It was, as always, one of assessment. Fact 1, I am not dead. Fact 2, the pylon exploded. Fact 3, my lungs feel surprisingly good. He opened his eyes. He was on the floor of the data spire, tucked behind the scorched bulkhead. Seraphine was still wrapped around him, her body a rigid shield over his, her face buried in his shoulder. She was trembling, but not from fear. It was the aftershock of the energy she had channeled. Is it over? He rasped. His throat was raw, but the burning from the ion mist was gone. The plasma transfusion she had given him had not just stabilized his heart. It had, as a side effect, flash-healed his lungs. "Jax!" he called out, his voice stronger than he expected. "Oh, man. Oh, man." Jax Rourke's voice came from near the main console, shaky but alive. My eyebrows. I think I lost my eyebrows, but... Look. Aiden gently shifted. Seraphine let out a low groan, but did not let go. Seraphine, it is okay. We are okay. She uncurled, pushing herself off him. Her face was pale, her silver hair singed at the tips, and a small, satisfied smile was on her lips. She had a smear of his blood, and her own, on her face. She looked like a warrior queen. Aiden looked where Jax was pointing. The central pylon was gone, a twisted, slagged ruin. But the terminal Jax had used, it was still glowing. And on the main wall, the holographic projector, running on emergency power, flickered to life. It was not a local display. It was the Interstellar Citizen Network, the ICN, the largest, most chaotic, most uncontrollable news feed in the Alliance, broadcast to everything, from capital ships to private data slates. And it was playing everything. It was playing the unedited footage from Professor Ventor's classroom, showing Kalith's lunge and Aiden's simple, still non-response. It was playing the audio from Maintenance Bay C-19, the entire conversation between Solace and Kalith, clear as a bell. It was playing the scans of the fake prop knife. It was playing Seraphine's entire, defiant speech, her signet blazing. It was playing Professor Ventor's logical, damning breakdown of the Archon-level security override. And it was playing Nira's harrowing, terrified testimony about the empathic weapon. It was not a report. It was an evidence dump, a raw, unnarrated, undeniable stream of truth. Uploaded in the 18 seconds, Aiden had held a data pylon, together with his mind. "The backup," Aiden whispered. "It did not just back up," Cole, Jack said, his voice giddy with adrenaline and a lack of eyebrows. It backed up, collated, packaged, and broadcast. I might have added the entire ICN node list to the recipient field. My bad. It is. Living evidence. It is playing. Everywhere. On every channel. On every planet. The cleansing, Seraphine said, her voice full of awe. He cannot cleanse the entire network. The sound of heavy, armored footsteps echoed from the corridor. The Heliant Guard. They were coming back. They are a little late, Aiden said. The doors to the data spire hissed open. It was not the Heliant Guard. It was Axiom Arc Security. The real ones. The blue-uniformed, overworked peacekeepers. And behind them, a dozen Alliance delegates. The ones who had been trapped in the hearing. Their faces, a mixture of terror, rage, and dawning political calculation. And leading them, his face pale and set, was Lord Calith Dre. He was not holding a weapon. His formal robes were torn, his arm scorched from the explosion he had narrowly avoided. He walked into the center of the room, past the wreckage, past the stunned delegates. He ignored the Ark security. He stopped, 2 yards from Seraphine and Aiden. He looked at Seraphine, his cousin, his crown princess. He looked at Aiden, the human he had tried to kill, the human who had, inexplicably, saved his life. And Lord Calith Dre, in a move that shattered millennia of Noctari aristocratic protocol, knelt. He went down on one knee, his head bowed, his body shaking. Your Highness, he said, his voice a broken, hollow thing. Princess, I was a fool. I was weak. Solace. He used my father's debts, my family's shame, to turn me into that. He looked up, his eyes meeting Aiden's. He freed me. He armed me. He told me to cleanse the rot. He wanted me to kill her. He nodded at Seraphine. And you. To silence the evidence. He looked back down at the floor. I failed him. I failed my blood. I failed my honor. He drew a ceremonial dagger from his boot. Not a prop. A real, shimmering blade. He did not aim it. He offered it, hilt first, to Aiden. You saved my life, Calith whispered. After I tried to take yours, you are protected. As she said, my life is yours. My testimony is yours. I will tell them. I will tell the Alliance. Everything. I will atone. Aiden looked at the dagger. He looked at the kneeling noble, the man he had hated, the symbol of his mother's murder. It all felt so small. He did not take the dagger. He just nodded. Get up. Lord Dre. Revenge is inefficient. We have work to do. We need paperwork. Calith looked up, his face a mask of profound confusion. Paper. Work. It is a human thing, Jax supplied from the console, not looking up. It is how we atone. It is terrifying. You will get used to it. The station groaned. And then, a new sound. A clear, chiming bell. The all-clear signal. And with it, the lights. The real lights. Flickered, struggled, and then came on. The station, after 9 hours of terror, returned to day mode. The artificial suns in the world gardens blazed to life. The humming of the primary grid, the sound of life, returned. A new voice, not Solace's, came over the station-wide address. It was the multi-tongued administrator from the fluid tank. The, uh, the Archons. Emergency. Has been suspended. An interim council has been convened. The Helliant Guard is relieved of its authority. Please, return to your dormitories. We will be reviewing the curriculum. The crisis was over. The real work was just beginning. In the days that followed, the Axiom Arc became the center of the known universe. The Axiom Arc broadcast, as it was now known, had not just shifted public opinion, it had shattered it. Merrick Solis, apprehended by his own security team while trying to reach an escape pod, was now in an Alliance holding cell, awaiting a trial that would, for the first time, put the consortium itself in the dock. The Axie entry, the Axiom Arc's student-run cafeteria, was, for the first time, loud. But it was not the noise of fear. It was the noise of debate. The Academy, in a fit of sudden, panicked transparency, had opened a dozen public dialogues on species prejudice. Aiden sat at his usual table, a cup of something black and steaming in his hand. "I still say," Jax Rourke said, sliding into the seat opposite him, "that you missed your calling. I find your presence non-conducive to a learning environment." That is the greatest line in academic history. Professor Ventor is a legend. "He just threw a podium," Aiden said, taking a sip of his coffee. "He threw it with tenure," Jax countered. And did you see the news? I am not expelled. I am not in jail. They gave me a scholarship." He held up a data slate. "The Jax Rourke Endowment for Ethical System Stress Testing. I am ethical. Can you believe it?" Aiden just raised his cup in a silent toast. Neerathal slid in next, looking brighter, healthier, and considerably less terrified. The station-wide hate frequency was gone, and the ambient emotional noise of the station was, as she put it, a very muddy gold color, confused, but hopeful. "It is a big improvement." She eyed Aiden's cup. "What is that this?" Aiden said. "Is the cafeteria's newest offering. A plasma coffee latte." "It is. A disaster," Seraphine Dre said, sitting down next to Aiden. She was back in her student grays, but she wore them differently. She wore them like they were armor she had chosen. "It has all the caloric inefficiency of your human coffee, combined with the metallic, unsatisfying aftertaste of a low-grade synthetic plasma charge." "I like it," Aiden said. "Of course you do," she said, her lips twitching. "Your species likes things that build character. It is barbaric." "So," Neera said, leaning in, a sly, lemon-yellow-colored gleam of mischief in her eyes, "are you two dating?" Aiden and Seraphine looked at each other. "Dating," Seraphine said, as if tasting the word. "Is that the human ritual where you imbibe stimulants and assess each other for long-term compatibility?" "That is one way to put it," Aiden said. "It sounds incredibly inefficient," Seraphine said. "It is," Aiden agreed. "Then, yes," Seraphine said, a small, private smile just for him. "We are dating. It is barbaric." "Well," Neera said, sitting back, satisfied. "I am just glad that is settled. Although, I am now starting a betting pool." "Betting pool?" Jax asked, suddenly interested. "On who saves who next time," Neera said. "I am putting 20 credits on Seraphine. She has that Secret warrior queen vibe. It is very purple. I am putting 20 on Aiden, Jack said. He bent light. With his brain. That is not a fair variable. I am putting 20 on you, Nira, Aiden said, not looking up from his coffee. You are the one who took a full-spectrum empathic assault and got back up to testify. Nira blushed. A soft, peach-rose color. The station was healing, but it was also changing. The biggest change came from the Noctari Empire. 2 days after the broadcast, the Noctari Crown, Seraphine's father, had issued a royal decree. It was unprecedented. They publicly affirmed the Blood-Light Compact. They publicly thanked Aiden Cole. They publicly condemned the treason of Archon Solace and Lord Valerius Dre. And then, they announced a new treaty, a joint human Noctari research initiative, funded, in its entirety, by the Noctari Crown, its purpose to study, replicate, and synthesize the Aiden rhythm, the unique, 3-beat, calm heart frequency that Seraphine had tasted. It was, the decree stated, the key to a permanent, synthetic cure for the dark thirst. It was not just a research grant. It was a political masterstroke. It bound the two species together, not by morals, but by medicine. The survival of the Noctari race now depended on the well-being of humanity. It was the most perfect, most binding alignment of interests in the history of the Alliance. They are paperworking us, Jax had said, his voice full of awe when he read it. They are out paperworking us. It is beautiful. For his part, Aiden had been busy. He had been in meetings. He had been invited by the new interim council to join the Inter-Academy Integrity Commission. He had accepted. On one condition, he had said, standing in that same grand hearing chamber, this time as a speaker, not a defendant. The room was empty, save for the 30 delegates of the new council. Condition, the administrator had bubbled. Mr. Cole, you are a hero. I am a student, Aiden corrected. And on this station, the students are the ones who see the truth. The faculty, they are non-conducive to rapid change. He had nodded to Professor Venter, who was, in fact, chairing the new commission. Venter had, in response, ground his obsidian features in what Aiden thought was approval. My condition, Aiden said, is that this is not just a commission, it is a committee, and it will have student co-decision power, not advisory, binding, a 1-to-1 vote, one faculty, one student, from all 312 species. It was anarchy. It was madness. It was democracy. They had agreed. He sat in the cafeteria, the plasma coffee latte, growing cold. The victory felt good. It felt right. The station was safer. The Noctari were allies. Nira was safe. Jax was ethical. Seraphine was dating him. It was perfect, except for one small, nagging, mechanical fact. You are thinking, Seraphine said, her voice pulling him from his thoughts. It is loud. It has a gray taste, like an unsolved equation. Aiden looked at her. He looked at Jax. He looked at Nira, his family. Merrick Solace, Aiden said, his voice quiet. The table went silent. What about him? Jax said. He is done. He is space dust. He is going to be in a box for the rest of his life. Yes, Aiden said, But he was too good. He was too prepared. The Helliant Guard, the empathic weapon, the cleansing protocol. That was not just ambition. That was a contingency plan. It was too big for one man, an Archon. He is just middle management. Aiden stared into his cup. He was not the source. He was a tool. Just a much sharper, much more expensive tool than Kaleith. He looked up, his gaze distant, staring through the wall, toward the blackness of space, toward the serrate hyperspace gate, the controlled wound that Professor Ventor was still lecturing about. Marek Solis was hired, Aiden said. Someone wrote his check. Someone wanted the Guardianship Act to pass. Someone wanted the human threat to be real. The question hung in the bright, cheerful, day-mode light of the cafeteria. Who the world garden was in its Terra Noctis cycle. 1,000 pinpoints of artificial light precisely mimicked the constellations of an Earth that was, for Aiden, a planet of memory and archives. The air was cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp, recycled earth. It was a profound, engineered silence. The roaring chaos of the cleansing, the plasma fire, the shouting. All of it had subsided, replaced by the low, steady hum of a station rebuilding its trust. Aiden Cole stood by the irrigation stream, his hands deep in the pockets of his standard gray tunic. He was supposed to be on a transport. His request for leave had been approved by the new interim council, effective immediately. They called it compassionate leave, a trip back to Earth, to finally, after 8 long years, attend the official memorial for his mother. His quest for revenge was over. The target, Marek Solis, was in a cell. The monsters, the Noctari, were now complicated allies. The truth was out. He should feel finished. He should feel a sense of closure. Instead, he just felt empty. The answer he had found was not the answer. It was just a new, more complicated question. Who hired Marek Solis? Who sponsored the white masks? "You are thinking again," a voice said, pulling him from his thoughts. He did not need to turn. He knew her taste, as she would say. He felt the subtle shift in the air that was her presence. "You are not supposed to be here," Seraphine said, her voice a low, melodic contrast to the chirping of the biome's robotic crickets. "You taste of goodbyes, a very salty gray flavor. I do not like it." She was not in her royal armor, nor her simple student grays. She wore a simple, dark blue consular robe. She was no longer hiding, no longer a student or a warrior. She was herself, the crown princess of the Noctari Empire, and now, its new ambassador to the Axiom Arc. "I am leaving," Aiden said, his voice quiet, matter-of-fact. "I am going back to Earth, for my mother's memorial." "I see," she said. She walked to his side, but did not look at him. She looked up at the false stars. A closing of the loop. It is a very human concept. To honor the data once it is corrupted. "We call it grieving," Aiden said, a small, tired smile touching his lips. "It is also very inefficient." "I have something," she said, her voice, suddenly, uncharacteristically, hesitant. "I believe it belongs to you, my father, the king. He was impressed by the broadcast, by my choices. He has granted me full archival access to everything." She turned to face him. In her hands was a small, flat box. It was not gleaming Noctari technology. It was old, made of scratched, pre-Alliance titanium. It was the exact same material as the worn disc on the chain around his neck. "When I confirmed the Bloodlight Compact," she said, My father unsealed the restricted vaults, the ones concerning the Human Alliance Project. Your mother. She was known to us. Aiden. Long before Belt Phi. This was hers. It was catalogued under Sable Cole Final Contingency. Aiden's heart, his anomalous 3-beat heart, stuttered. He reached out, his hand, for the first time since the classroom, visibly shaking. He took the box. It was warm from her hands. Seraphine, he whispered. Open it. Aiden Cole, she said, her voice soft. And grieve the correct data. He opened the box. Inside, there was no file, no chip. There was a single, old-model human projection crystal. He touched it. A hologram, flickering and low resolution, sprang to life in the air between them. It was his mother, Dr. Sable Cole. She was younger, her hair shorter, her eyes brighter. She was smiling. And she was not in an Alliance lab. She was in the Noctari throne room, a place Aiden had only seen in archives. She was standing across from Seraphine's father, the Noctari king. The dark thirst is not a curse, Your Majesty. His mother's voice, so clear, so alive, filled the quiet garden. It is a dissonance, a genetic sickness of resonance. Your people do not need to feed. You need to be tuned. The scene shifted. Another log. His mother, in a Noctari laboratory, surrounded by their glowing data crystals. The compact is real, the ancient humans. Their plasma resonance did not cure you. It stabilized you. It taught your dissonant cells how to harmonize. But why their specific frequency? The file shifted, the date jumping, Belt Phi, the Eridani flotilla. This was not a military log. It was his mother's own private investigation. They know, she was whispering, her face tight with a fear he had never seen in her. The consortium, the ones backing the human integration. They found out what I am doing. They do not want a cure for the thirst. They want the Noctari to be monsters. They need a boogeyman to justify their guardianship acts. The file shifted. A weapon schematic. The red mist. A consortium-developed chemical agent, designed to dissolve organic matter and mimic a Noctari plasma feeding. They are coming. His mother's voice was a ragged whisper, her eyes darting off-screen. They are staging a raid. They are framing the Noctari. To kill me. To bury the cure. To start their war. They think I hold the key. She shook her head. A single, desperate motion. But I do not. The log ended. Aiden was not breathing. His mother. She was not a victim. She was a scientist. A collaborator. She had been working with the Noctari, the very people he had hated, to save them. And she had been murdered for it. Murdered by the true enemy. The White Masks. The ones who wrote Merrick Solis's checks. He needed to breathe. There is more, Seraphine said, her voice tight, pulling him back. Aiden, look. A new file. It was him, an infant, his own birth records, from a private off-world clinic. Another log, his mother's voice, tired, weaker, just after his birth. Surgical augmentation complete, she murmured, the data slate in her holographic hand showing a sonogram. The cover story is a gravity-adaptive cardiovascular anomaly, a necessary mutation for high-gravity worlds. It is a lie, a beautiful lie. The sonogram on the screen pulsed, a tiny heart. His heart. It was wrong. It was pulsing in a 3-beat rhythm. The resonance. His mother's voice was thick with exhaustion, and something else. Awe. I synthesized it. From the compact data, I spliced it into my son. Oh, Sable, what have you done? She was crying. He had never seen his mother cry. I have turned my son into the key, she whispered. The living cure. The only tuning fork in the galaxy that can end the thirst. I did it. I did it so that one day he could steer an empire not with force, but with kindness. And now they are hunting me for it. He is not safe. He is never safe. Aiden sank. He sat, hard, on the damp earth. His heart, his anomaly, his vector sense. It was not an accident. It was not a mutation. It was a design. It was a gift. It was a cure. From her. Aiden, Seraphine whispered. She was kneeling in front of him, the crown princess of an empire, kneeling in the dirt. The last file, she said, her voice shaking. The last file. It was not a log. It was a program. A contingency plan. Codenamed the Calm Heart. His mother's voice. Cold, precise, logical. This was the mother he remembered. This is a dead man's switch, planted deep in the core logic of the Axiom Art grid. It will lie dormant. It has one, very specific, three-part trigger. 1. An Archon-level security override of a classroom suppression field. 2. The simultaneous presence of a Noctari aristocratic threat profile. 3. The simultaneous presence of genetic signature Aiden C138. My son. Aiden stopped breathing. The knife incident, he whispered. It is not a weapon. His mother's voice, a ghost, a planner, continued. It is a test, a social engineering stress test. It will not stop the attack. It will expose it. It will force Aiden into the light. It will force the Noctari to see him. It will test all of them. If I am gone, and if the consortium tries to start their war, this will be my answer, my final lesson. Her voice, just for a second, broke, becoming a mother's. Can you pass my test, Aiden? Can you not be the Deathworlder they expect? Can you be? My son. The file ended. The garden was utterly silent. The robotic crickets had ceased. Aiden Cole sat on the ground, the projection crystal in his hand. His life, his grief, his 8-year vow of revenge. It was all a lie. It was all a setup. It was a plan. His mother had not died as a victim. She had died as a player, a grandmaster. She had sacrificed her own pawn, herself, to move her king, him, into position. 8 years later, his revenge. It was over. It had been fulfilled, not by him, by her. He was not a survivor of a tragedy. He was the result of a plan. He was free. Aiden Cole looked up. He looked at Seraphine, the crown princess of an empire, who was kneeling in the dirt for him. And he laughed. It was not a smile. It was a real, gasping, choking laugh. It tasted of salt and iron and, for the first time, freedom. She won, he gasped, the laugh turning into tears. She won. Seraphine rose, her own eyes wet. She was more Noctari than my uncle. She understood the long game. Aiden stood. He wiped the tears from his face, his hands steady. He looked at her. You are not going to Earth. Are you? She whispered. No, Aiden said. His voice was clear. His 3-beat heart settled into its new, true rhythm. The memorial can wait. My mother's work is here. The Inter-Academy Integrity Commission, Seraphine said. It was a statement. The Inter-Academy Reform Committee, Aiden corrected her. My first act as co-chair. They will not like that, Seraphine said, a true, small smile forming on her face. I am counting on it, Aiden replied. He stepped closer. She did not move. I am staying, he said. And you are staying. I am, she confirmed. The Noctari Embassy has a new ambassador. Me. I am overseeing the Aiden Rhythm Project, It is. My duty. Good, Aiden said, and he kissed her. It was not a hesitant kiss. It was not a kiss of passion, or of desperation. It was a kiss of equals. A kiss 8 years in the making. A kiss planned by a ghost. It tasted of salt and marble and plasma. She kissed him back, her hands gripping his tunic. He pulled away, just an inch. You are so hot-blooded, he whispered. A joke. She did not miss a beat, her dark eyes gleaming in the false starlight. Are you being literal or figurative? Yes, Aiden said. The Axiom arc was reborn. It was not a quiet rebirth. It was loud, chaotic, and full of arguments. The Inter-Academy Reform Committee was now in permanent session, co-chaired by student delegate Aiden Cole and Professor Hallex Ventor. Their first act was to pass the Mutual Protection Compact, co-authored by Aiden. It was now required reading for all species. The human student section had a new, volunteer security detail. It was led by Lord Calith Dre. He was grim, silent, and fiercely dedicated. He was atoning, not with paperwork, as Jax would, but with his life. He was the most honorable and most feared bodyguard on the station. Aiden stood at the main viewport, looking out at the station and at the blackness beyond. He was not alone. Nira leaned against the wall, sipping a juice. You know, Calith tastes like old books and profound regret now. It is a big improvement. Jax leaned next to her, his eyebrows slowly growing back in. Just remember, you two, he said, gesturing to Aiden and Seraphine. My scholarship depends on you not blowing up any more data pylons. So please, date quietly. Seraphine slipped her hand into Aiden's. He held it. He looked out the window, at the vast, shining structure of the serrate hyperspace gate, the controlled wound, the doorway. He knew, with the absolute, cold certainty of an engineer, that they were still out there, the ones who hired Marek, the ones who murdered his mother, the ones who wanted a war, the real consortium, the nameless, faceless power network that saw the Alliance not as a community, but as a resource to be controlled. The hunt was not over, but it was different now. He was not hunting a ghost. He was not driven by a child's revenge. He was finishing a lesson, his mother's lesson. He looked at Seraphine, a vampire princess who had shared her strength with him. He looked at Jax and Nira, a hacker and an empath who had become his family. He felt his own 3-beat heart, a cure, a key, beating in his chest. They were ready. They would start the next hunt, with patience, with evidence, with humor, and with love.